Hello, everybody. It's me. Number 5 is one of the most disturbing ghost videos ever captured. First up today, we have to go back to 2008 when a group of friends decided to check out an abandoned house in Illinois. This was not just any abandoned house. The home had been left vacant for years, and it was known throughout the town to be haunted. One of the people who went into this home was named David, who brought a camera along with him. While inside, he began to hear chains dragging metal moans, and then all of a sudden the camera picked up what looked like a dark shadow figure dragging itself closer and closer. This wasn't any ordinary shadow, however, because there was no body attached to it. Whatever this thing was moved through walls, and did not seem to be affected by the laws of physics. It seemed to stop near the front door, where it stayed until the camera turned off. Some believe this may have been the ghost of someone who had passed away in that home many years prior, while others say it could have been something far more sinister. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe button. Moving on at number 4, we have to head down to Florida, where a woman named Cheryl Johnson was paying her respects to her husband at his graveside. She said she was overcome with emotion after being separated from her husband for over a year due to the pandemic. She couldn't visit his grave. As she reached out to touch his headstone, she snapped a photo. After looking at the picture later, however, she noticed a very strange, ghostly apparition standing next to her husband's casket. She immediately called her pastor to inform him of her discovery. Together they headed back to the cemetery to investigate further. At first, they were unable to see anything unusual, but then the pastor told her to take another picture, which once again captured the same ghostly white figure. Cheryl and her pastor are still unsure of what this ghost was, but they both agree it's a miracle Cheryl was able to capture it on camera. Moving on at number 3, we have to head to Pennsylvania, where a man named Dan was doing some remodeling work in an old house. He had purchased the home for a decent price because it needed so much work, but he soon realized he was in way over his head. He needed help and quickly contacted a contractor. The contractor was able to look over the plans and give Dan a better idea of how much the renovations would actually cost. Dan was disappointed, but eventually hired the contractor anyway. That's when the strange things started happening. At first it was just small things here and there, such as tools moving on their own and lights flickering, but it quickly escalated. The contractor and Dan were working late one night when all of a sudden a floorboard above them collapsed. Luckily, neither of them were injured, but they were scared. They decided to call it a night and come back in the morning. When they returned, they found the floorboard that had collapsed completely destroyed. It almost looked like it had been burned. Unable to explain the phenomenon, they decided to contact a paranormal investigator. The investigator was able to use a thermal camera to identify cold spots within the house. This is a common technique used to find ghosts or other spirits. The investigator then placed various cameras throughout the house to capture whatever may happen on video. That night, they were able to capture the full apparition of a ghostly woman. The woman appeared to be wearing a long dress and a bonnet. Nobody knows who she is or why she's haunting the home. Now we have to head to number 2. A young mother named Brianna was at her home when she heard a loud crash. She assumed it was her dog and carried on with her day. Later, she noticed that the lid of her toilet had been removed and thrown across the room. She knew her dog wasn't strong enough to do this, so she became frightened. That's when she turned on the video camera For the next few hours, nothing happened, so she went to bed. The next morning, she checked the video footage and discovered that, during the night, the toilet had been flushed several times. Not only that, but it appeared to have lifted up and slammed back down again. Even more surprising, however, was the fact that she also seemed to have a visitor. On camera, you can see the full apparition of a little girl walking past the camera. The girl seems to walk right through the wall, which means she's likely a ghost. Nobody knows who this girl is or where she went. Finally, we have to head to New York, where a woman named Rachel was driving along a country road at night. It was a foggy night and visibility was extremely low. Suddenly, in front of her headlights, she saw a strange orb-like object slowly floating above the ground. Rachel stopped her car and waited to see if it would move. Thinking it may have just been a trick of the fog, she continued on her way. However, that's when she saw another orb directly in the middle of the road. The object seemed to materialize out of thin air. It continued to float in front of her car for about 30 seconds before vanishing. Again, Rachel was unnerved, but continued to drive on. Eventually, she came across yet another orb floating in the middle of the road. It was at this point that Rachel decided to turn around and head home. Most people believed these were the ghosts of spirits that had died on that road. However, there is another explanation. Some say these could have been Chinese lanterns. However, the size of these objects doesn't match up, and they seem to be floating without any sort of string or wire. Thanks for watching. Would you dare spend the night in an allegedly haunted house? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye.